Durban studios. Janet, let's talk about this idea. What were you doing? How do you come up with a concept like this and then deal with such serious issues?
I think I'm pretty serious myself, but I'm exploring the idea of human relationships with animals and how we represent them, and how that representation has formed a kind of disconnect between us and nature. So there's two parts to the show. I've made paintings and I've made photographs as well, and the two are talking slightly different languages, but they're interwoven. But to answer the green screen aspect of it, obviously green screen is about a manipulated environment or a decontextualization of your character, and then recontextualizing that character. And the photographs look at animals in museums where there's dioramas where we've taken them out of their environments and then recontextualized them and try to make them look real. And really what the exhibition, the question the exhibition poses is how we're looking at animals and how that look is guided and choreographed by others so much of the time. And so much of that knowledge about animals actually has very little to do with the animal itself. So I'm asking questions, I'm posing questions a lot of the time. And the paintings have a lot to do with environmental aspects, my view that we're facing environmental crisis, and yes, and it represents that in a far more, I suppose, evocative way. Yeah.
Janet, how do we creatively, or let me pose the question at you, how do you creatively begin to create something that plays in so many different spaces? We're talking about having that eye for photography and finding the detail, the story in that, but then creatively creating the paintings, and then once you've done and exhausted yourself in that creative space, you then move into the digital space. Technology is another beast on its own. How did you creatively mind map your way through what I can only describe as an intricate and maybe many artists will describe as very difficult?
Well, I think the questions themselves are difficult. You know, I'm a painter and I needed to understand how I felt about my environment and what was happening to my environment. And so, being a city girl, the best way to do that was to go into the Natural History Museum, and I took a camera. And the camera for me is a bit like using a pencil. It's a way of exploring ideas. It's a more analytical way of looking at the world. And it allowed me to define and hone some of my questions that I was asking myself. And I suppose asking all of us. And so, yes, it's a highly complex thing. I think our relationship with animals is very, very complex. It's primal on one level. And then, you know, with our technologies, with our sort of edutainments, the Attenborough edutainment that we have all the time, we have this constant barrage of other people's ideas of what animals should be like, and we end up completely divorced, essentially, from our environment. And I think that leads to all sorts of abilities to remain dissociated, not only from our animal environment, but also from our human environment. You know, screens have this incredible way of disconnecting us all the time. So we live in a state of perpetual, partial focus. You know, there's always this screen that's distracting us.
Janet, we've run out of time, but what a great conversation. That was Janet Solomon from our Durban studio. She's the artist behind the Intelligent Green Screen exhibition. Be sure to engage with her and that incredible work. Okay, she's got about 24 minutes.